I'm Rob Licuria, senior editor at Gold Derby, here with the one and only Orlando Bloom. Orlando, To the Edge is a fascinating adventure series, contemplates really compelling existential questions. So I just wanted to know, first up, what most surprised you about what you took out of the whole experience?
Um, I think, thank you, first of all, for your time this morning, today. Um, and thank you for that question. There was so much to take away from making this show. I would say, it started with just the vulnerability of even stepping into an unscripted space, which was not something that I'd ever decided or thought about doing in any major way. The idea came up through COVID when I was very aware of the palpable fear. And I think we can all agree that COVID was a super challenging time in the world for everybody. And
Yeah.
initially, I wanted to do a show about longevity and people who live in parts of the world and have just got their idea of living right, and so they're living well with the world. And that wasn't like a blue zone idea, and there was already a version of that, and people weren't quite frankly, the studios weren't really interested in that, in seeing me do that. So it was like, well, how about we throw you out of a plane and see how deep you can swim and have you climb this insane peak that takes 5 years to learn how to do? And I was like, yeah, okay, that works, I'll have a go. So and actually I think, you know I've had a Buddhist philosophy in my life since I'm 16, and I've really come to realize that there is magic in that space when you step out of our daily routines and our lives and go into, what does it take for you, the viewer, to be on your edge? Could it be, you're going to learn to cook so that you can cook for your family, and that's a really intimidating feeling because what if you don't get it right? Or you're going to, go and do stand up, or you're going to, whatever it may be. It's something where, you're just not going with the flow, or you are, but you're pushing your flow into other tributaries, and you're going
Mm.
into that other space, because that to me is sort of where, as I said, the magic of life can really live, and you can have the experience that gives you something more than you expected in return.
That's exactly what I pretty much took out of this as well, because like no one's suggesting that I have to jump out of a plane, but it is so rewarding to push yourself in certain ways and sometimes do the thing that freaks you out a little bit and see what happens. And you know what, Orlando, you and I are almost the same age. I think you're almost just 1 year older than me. And it
Cool.
reminded me that when you hit your mid to late 40s,
Right, right.
um, the aches and pains of everyday life become more apparent. I walk up the stairs and my legs make noises. And then, but if you're lucky, you begin to discover this inner peace and gratitude over life's blessings. And most importantly for me, and mate, perhaps for you, this path to self-acceptance. I just wonder if a lot
Yeah,
of that stuff really started to bubble up to the surface
yeah.
during this whole process.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So beautifully put. I mean, honestly, gratitude, and I don't know. People talk about a midlife crisis. I don't know if I don't think about my life in terms of like, um, when I think back over the course of my life, I feel like it's like almost like multiple lifetimes that I've been like living, and you know, in a way, this opportunity which was presented to me, and something that I kind of, definitely, I brought this, I invited this into my life, and I accepted that challenge. I think it I think it is going to stand me in greater stead than almost anything that I've done in my life. Outside of my work with UNICEF, which is something where I find myself in very challenging corners of the world, where you see kids that just have nothing, and need so much, and or actually need so little, except just like a little bit to help them survive, whether that be a tap to create water that's clean and fresh in the middle of a
Mm.
village, so they don't have to walk 2 miles up a mountain, for 2 hours to kind of get water that's contaminated. So it, I think it's, you know, I don't want to sound like, you know, like too, I don't know what the word is, but you know what I mean, where you get like philosophical and you think about, but gratitude for just
Yeah.
like the fact that we are born into this life and have the opportunity to live this lifetime, and is something that like was heightened through this show. And I think this show is so much more than just like an action, like adventure slash, adrenaline junkie, which I think is such a weird negative connotation, because actually all of the athletes that train me are just supreme athletes, and have an area of excellence that is far beyond just your average, person. And you can easily watch 15-second clip on your social media page, but you forget to realize that actually that is a form of like excellence. So, I kind of I hope that the takeaway for your audience and people watching is more than seeing Orlando Bloom go on a jolly, as it were. You know what I mean? Because my intention going into it was not that. My intention going into it was to have an experience as a human who is incredibly lucky and who is also aware of that good fortune and is trying to experience all of the things that life can throw at you, and grow from it, because I think that's ultimately, we're all, as you point out, you reach a point in life and you just want to keep moving forward, keep taking action and living, and yeah, that living just beyond your level of comfort is definitely something that I would subscribe to.
What I really, really loved about this is that it could have been contrived, it could have been self-serving, it could have been artificial. I feel like every episode you were really earnest, which I really always appreciate in shows like this, and really honest, which is a big risk because you put yourself out there. What if no one cares? What if no one watches? What if no one likes it? But it doesn't matter because you've put it out there into the world, and hopefully people will respond to it. It makes me wonder, thinking of us both in our 40s, you wouldn't really be able to do something like this in your 20s, would you? You're in a completely different space. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think that's a very fair assessment. I think it takes a certain mindset, and if this had been presented to me as an opportunity at that time in my life, listen, don't get me wrong. When I went to New Zealand, there was a letter given to everyone as we embarked on a trip down to Queenstown, where we shot at the bottom of the South Island, most of a large chunk of the movie, The Lord of the Rings. And the letter said, whilst we recognize that I was 21 at the time, that you guys are young and want to do, we would encourage you not to embark on these crazy things. And I think the first thing I did when I got there was like do a bungee jump over the town of Queenstown, which was a really crazy one. But the idea of a show, and again, coming back to that unscripted thing and that feeling of vulnerability, and especially as that show is living in the world, I feel like, I hope that audience members watch it, and whoever or how many doesn't really play into it. I didn't sign up to do more of these. This is it. I'm not saying I wouldn't do more, but I'm just saying it wasn't, the idea wasn't, it was just to shine a light on something that I thought I would learn something from. And I'm very lucky that I got the opportunity to do it. And I hope that audiences get to experience that part of the journey. And you sweetly point out that it was very, the production value was very real. You know what I mean? This wasn't like, there wasn't some crazy budget where we're like, got insane aerial cameras. And I think, even in the first two, which is like wingsuiting and then freediving, it wasn't until climbing where we even brought a drone in, which is like crazy because like that's such a great tool to use. But like, I think that the production was finding its feet whilst I was finding my feet. And I think that there's something really unique about that. It's not pretentious. It's very kind of, it's very unpretentious, which I think gives it a certain kind of realness. And And I think, you know, people can look at people in the world, you know, you can look at, you know, anyone, you know, pick a name out of all of the, you know, A-list celebrities that you know, see in the world and see in great big movies. And you can think, oh, that's what they're like. And then, you know, I think when you watch this, you go, oh, wait a second, you know, like, let's not judge a book by its cover, or let's think about, you know, each individual's personal experience of the world and the world that they live in, you know, and that was part of, you know, Edge for me, was getting to sort of like in real time understand aspects of myself which I think hopefully are relatable, and that were unexpected and new to me.
Yeah, because we're all people, like, you know, and it's
Right.
just nice. It's very humanizing to watch a show like this where what happens is, I think it really reminds us all to be a bit more empathetic to others, putting ourselves in others. So I'm putting myself in your shoes as I'm watching it and thinking to myself, hell no. But then also maybe yes. And I'm watching your
Sure.
face as you are terrified and also
Yeah.
excited. I just think also this is what really profoundly got me about this show. It's about the accrual of experiences. I've always been like that, and I'm really very, very keen with my wife and kids about experience rather than just accruing stuff. I really
Oh,
connect with that.
thank
What
you.
do you think?
Oh, that's music to my ears. I think that there's been a certain currency around the world of accumulating things in life. And don't get me wrong, I'm wearing things. I love
Yeah,
things. We
you
all,
know, I love my
I get it. I
stuff,
get it.
but
We love our stuff, right?
yeah,
Actually, I think, you know, I think about my son's generation at 13, and he's, you know, he's not even, it's not even about the new thing. It's more like experiences, because it are, you know, the experiences that we have in life are the things that make who we are. You know what I mean? And I often have this analogy of a painting as this sort of tapestry for my life. And it's like when you know, when you overcome the obstacles in your life, you get that deep purple and that black that, you know, otherwise this canvas would just be this like monochrome, pale, soft yellow and blue or whatever. And it's like, it's when you do the things that take you out of your comfort, and we can't escape those things in life. You know, you can't avoid the fact that as a human, we're born and we're going to grow, or we're going to get sick and we're going to die. I mean, it's just, you know, this is part of my Buddhist philosophy. It's taught me that through understanding that, in fact, you have more appreciation, and you try to be more present to the moment and more gratitude for just everything in life, because otherwise you're like, you know, you really kind of like, you can just become like, I don't even know what the option is. It's like, I think they say NPCs, right? Whatever
yeah,
those
yeah,
are
a
in movies,
spectator.
you know, a
Yeah.
spectator of life. And, you know, I've never been much of a spectator. I've always much preferred to sort of be out there and doing it. And I hope that's encouraging in the messaging of Edge, of OB to the Edge, because I think that's, you know, for your kids, you know, how old are your kids?
Nearly 16 and 14. So
But there you go. I mean, I think like this is going to be great for them. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, aside from climbing where I had quite a lot of potty mouth, which they beep out because I was really
love it.
like,
It's important. It's important
it
to be
was
to just
it was
let it out.
so hard. I was at times I was like, this is really crazy. Part of that being that this remarkable athlete, Mo Beck, who I was like, had her life in my hands. That was like an added, you know, it's like, it's not even, I don't have to take just responsibility for my life, but it's somebody else. And, you know, I think the analogies like are ripe for all of the messaging that you want to put out there. And especially when it comes to a show like this, and hopefully, you know, hopefully whoever watches this gets a sense of like, oh wow, okay, let's do something different this weekend. You know what I mean? Let's go
Mhm.
surf, or let's take it somewhere different. Let's go for a hike that we would challenge us more than it would normally, or you know, I don't know. It could be anything. So
Anything. Yeah, there's no limit. And well, there is, but you know, I mean,
it's your
everyone is
mind.
different.
The only limit is your
Yeah,
mind.
that's right. It could be as simple as I'm going to go and have a coffee with that mate of mine that I haven't seen in 6 months. It's easier for
Yeah,
me to just ignore it and watch TV all day, but I'm not going to do that. And it's just anything
yeah.
really. And that's what I think, I hope, and I'm sure you hope as well, that people take out of it. What about your loved ones? How did they feel about you going
Good
through this
question.
whole journey? It's scary.
My son came to one of the land like during the wingsuit episode. He came to the site that we were filming at, the drop zone, and I think he was really I think he was quite shocked because I think he was like, Dad, are you okay? Because like I think one of the jumps that you see, I landed, you're supposed to land into the wind, so, it's what breaks. And I think I went with the wind because I just misread the flag that was, they have those like, that you see on airplanes anyway, at airports. I either misread it or I just was like focused on other things. But he saw me like, and I think he was like, are you good? Is this good? Is this, but like, I think, I've been asked about, I'm always encouraging my son, and my daughter's so young now, but like and even with my partner and people in my life to sort of like, to do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do, because I think that, a lot of what we navigate is just control, right? Fear and control. And when you take yourself out of the driver's seat and give over to the education of an excellent athlete, obviously I wouldn't encourage anyone to do just anything like
No.
this. You would need the real experts in their fields. But as we said, you can take it down and make it granular and put it into anything. But I think like I don't think my partner realized exactly what was necessarily entailed until she saw me coming home being kind of completely shell shocked at times. And then, witnessing, as she does throughout the show, aspects of what was happening. But she was off in another part of the world and at times in the country, in her own flow, doing what she needed to
Yeah.
do. So we just check in on FaceTime. And, I think it was like, it was more apparent, obviously, when the show released, at least she saw it, exactly what was happening. And I'm not sure how excited she is about me doing anything like that again. But, I think also like, there's, I mean, probably the easy thing is like, well, there's insurance. Nobody wants anyone to, but I definitely felt, when I was under canopy, I mean, look, wingsuiting, things can go south really fast, right? Like if you get into a tailspin when you're supposed to pull your chute at 5,000, then you've got like a matter of seconds before, you've got to get one chute out. And if you're in a tailspin, the chances are that chute's going to come out weird. So then you're going to be under a weird chute, which you're going to have to cut away and then go. So there's a lot that is going on in that very heightened moment. And I think it's the reason why, you can get your A license to skydive in 25 jumps. And obviously we did a very accelerated path to doing that. But the way to get a wingsuit is normally at least 200 jumps. But because Luke Aikens, who is this expert who jumped from 25,000 feet without a parachute, he's the guy who like comes up with crazy things like that. He had me on a trajectory and he felt confident that I could in fact land this moment. And so I was very lucky to get to jump at 26 jumps, which possibly is a first. We're not sure, like certainly to his knowledge of like, getting to do that wingsuit. But it was, yeah, I mean, I remember being on my 7th jump under canopy and I'm like, I was the first jump where I didn't have a radio and I'm under this parachute, which is called a canopy. And I'm like pulling my risers. My risers are the things that you steer the plane with, you steer the parachute with. And it's pretty straightforward, honestly. It's like right to go right, left to go left, not rocket science. But like I went, oh, and I looked up and my toggle was entangled in one of the lines and I was like, it wasn't moving. So I only had my left to land. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. Now the risers are behind me. And if I'd had more experience, I would know that I could let go of the toggles and use those in some way. But even at that stage in my training, I was 7 jumps in. Even now I would find that intimidating and I would maybe consider, but what I had to do, pulling my reserve, people never pull a reserve chute, right? Like they can do 10,000 jumps and not pull one. It's like very rare. But so I was like, okay, protocol 1, 2 doesn't work. 1, you cut that away back into free fall. 2, you pull it, the reserve chute comes out, and that's it. You've got 2 chutes and you're done. So I was like, I mean, I think you see it on my face when I come down. I'm like, wait, was that a joke? Was that a test? Well, this is crazy. And then we drive out to the field to get the chute. And it's like there's somebody walking around in the field just pulled over because they'd seen the chute come and land and they were looking for a body in the field. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's very, you know, the show is very kind of like wild and real and something I'm proud of. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
touching wood, grateful all the days.
Yeah, and coming from someone who is so profoundly afraid of heights, it was a journey just for me watching it on my TV, let alone you doing it. And on that note, Orlando, I'm really impressed with this series. Congrats on some really amazing work and for putting yourself out there. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me, man. Good to see you.